you wrote your notebook, which is must read for people. Okay, go read Luke Fox's notebook. Every single time it comes out, I'm like, ooh, treasure. There's, especially for what I do. This is the tonic that I need. Right. This is, hey, here's a bunch of different storylines that you can think about and you can try to examine over the course of your show. So I do want to get into some of the stuff from the notebook, but it starts off. You're talking about Joe Woll's return, and there's all these questions, all this consternation about when the kid's going to come back and what's the net going to look like. And all of a sudden, Samsonov out of nowhere comes in and looks brilliant. And I know we can't, it's hard to trust Ilya Samsonov at any point. Like, I don't even know, I was saying it yesterday, how many great starts he's going to have to string together for anybody to have a reasonable thought of, okay, well, he's the clear backup. This is a 50-50. He is back to being the starter. Like, I don't know what the bar is for this guy. But I got to start with the rehab stint or the walk away time or the, hey, go take a mental vacation time. What do you know about it? Because it was very secretive. It was very quiet. And yet it appears to have worked.
It's unbelievable. Like, can you recall a goalie or maybe any player going away from the team and coming back and having such a complete 180? Like, before he went into this, he was arguably the worst goalie in the whole National Hockey
Not
League.
arguably, he was.
Maybe Antti Ranta in Carolina might have had a worse save percentage, or you could argue that he had a better defense and was disappointing. But and then just a complete 180. He has a decent start against Detroit, but loses, but looks kind of solid. Then he was stellar against the crappy Kraken team on Sunday. And then he goes out and has the game of his life, saves a shorthanded 2-on-0 where they get 2 shots, keeps the belt, which has never happened. Even Austin Matthews had to concede, no, I don't deserve it, you deserve it, which was the right call. And he looks, but it's not just, the stat lines or the fact that he has 2 wins in a row here. It's his whole demeanor. Mm-hmm. He looks like he has his confidence back. So, he said that it helped not being part of feeling like I had to prepare for a game. So even if he's backing up Martin Jones, in his mind, he's like, I could go in the net. I could go in the net tonight. And it was getting in his head. So this is, when you talk to him, he said, it is 100% mental. He needed a mental break from the grind. He was hard on himself, thinking, I'm no good. Maybe I've lost it. I'm sure the arbitration factored into it. I know for a fact he wanted security in terms of having a long-term deal, just had a baby at home, wife at home. Like, there's a human element to this. And then the Leafs say, yeah, it's great that you got us our first playoff series victory in, 2 decades, but we don't believe in you yet. You have to prove it all over again. So that's how he enters training camp. And basically he says from October up until 2 weeks ago was the lowest point of his life mentally. It's the hardest he's had to go through. So and I wasn't a believer that, just time away, not playing a game with the Marlies, only having one practice with the Marlies, like just basically hanging out with goalie coaches and talking to his family and people close to him. I wasn't a huge believer that would suddenly flip a switch. But it did. He needed a break. And he said something interesting this week is that his parents flew from Russia and came to visit him, and he had a real long heart-to-heart with his father. And his father kind of said, like, you're not a kid anymore. You're a dad. You're a husband. You got to fight for this. Like, basically, like, your career's on the line here. Like, if he doesn't respond, like, what happens? The Leafs don't resign him. Does any NHL team want to take a chance on the guy? And if they do, are we talking league minimum deal? Like, so it's interesting. He credits the conversation with his dad a lot. He basically said, you need to grow up. You need to fight for your career, for your family. You got to, he didn't say it, but you got to play well to earn some money and survive as a goaltender. Do you want this? And he started putting in a lot of work. I wondered if it was a little bit performative, but when he got recalled and had yet to start, Martin Jones was still starting on Long Island. he went out so far ahead of the other guys for practice that morning and stayed on the ice way longer than all the rest of the players. And I wondered if it was a bit of you're a little bit skeptical. Like, is this just a show? Hey, I'm working. Mm-hmm. But he has been putting in a ton of work behind the scenes when you talk to his teammates. And I really believe that he is really trying his best mentally and in terms of putting in the work behind the scenes to try and save his career right now.
I hate that I'm saying this right now because there's a million reasons I hate that I'm saying it, but that's a movie. If he turns this into something, that's it. Leaf fans are getting chills thinking about that. I'm picturing the scene of his father landing and it just being quiet between the two of them for days, right? He's down in the dumps. And then all of a sudden everybody's in bed and then his dad pours the vodka, right? He's at the table and he looks at him and and his back is turned and Samsonov's sitting at the table. He's not really, and he just says, "Do you want this?" He's like, "Huh?" I said, "Do you want this?" And then he turns and he gives him the heart to heart. And then all of a sudden Samsonov is in the gym and he's working out and you get the Rocky montage scene. I can see it. I can picture it. I believe in it. And this is a toxic part of my personality as someone who has something emotionally invested in the Toronto Maple Leafs. But yeah, dude, it's hard not to think about what happens if he's actually really good in the net. And I've been pointing it out, but he sucked last March, and then his April was phenomenal. It's never this bad. He's been an up and down ride throughout his career, but if he can somewhat sustain this, if he can perform the way that he did last night, not like let in no goals, but look that way, look calm in the net, track the puck that way. Yeah, it's not unreasonable to think that he changes the entire complexion of this Leaf season, which is wild to think considering, like, that's the thing I think you're pointing to of a guy being this unplayable to turning into what looks like that, the degree of separation between that play.
100%. It's really wild. I can't recall an instance where I've seen such a dramatic flip. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves,
sure.
Right? Like, it's only 3 starts. And like you said, this is an erratic goalie.
Yes.
I talked to a lot of people in Washington, and they were not that sad to see him go because, he's dropping his stick or he gives up the untimely goal, and they had seen enough. But maybe the maturity has set in. Maybe this was enough of a shock to the system that we do see him get on a bit of a run. And it's a human story. Like, you kind of root for it, like you were saying.
Of course you do.
That movie-esque aspect to it. The other thing I would say is the Leafs are really lucky. Like, Joseph, when injury strikes Joseph Woll, Martin Jones, which was arguably Brad Treliving's best move. I'm a Simone Benoit fan too.
Same.
So, but Martin Jones comes in, and really timely that he goes on a run. And then as soon as Martin Jones starts to falter, Samsonov finds himself. Like, the timing of these passing the baton of the hot goalie has really saved the Leafs season.
Totally. 100%. And again, we have to keep prefacing this because people are probably losing their minds going, this guy got hot for a couple of games and you guys are doing this, really? But yeah, we get it. We understand it. But to me, I'm not trying to make light of his mental situation here at all. But yeah, he's 26 years old, right? And there have been times where he really wears it. And we've gone, it's hard. It's hard to do this job, but that is one of the components you need to have, right? You need to be strong psychologically to deal with the ups and downs. Every pro athlete, when they say you need to burn the tape or you need to have a short memory, right? That's saying you need to be mentally strong. You need to be able to forget the failures, remember that you're someone who's successful and move forward. And maybe part of this, you're right, is just going to be maturity. Maybe it is a pump-up call from your father going, hey, you can't feel sorry for yourself. You can't feel sorry for yourself at all, because if you continue to do it this way, you're going to lose everything from a career standpoint. And so who knows? But there is, I think, a little bit of reason to be optimistic about something like that. When you do have a guy that's that talented, that can look that way, that moves his pads that way, that can get across his net with that kind of explosion, that is that size, hard not to be a little optimistic when you're looking at it. And here's the other part for me that I was thinking about with the going away part of it is I had Carter Hutton on yesterday, and it was a throwaway line, but we were talking about the Leafs goaltending, and we were talking about just the Leafs as an organization and him being there. And he mentioned there's so many cooks in the kitchen. And I wonder if so much of this for Samsonov just being able to go away is not having to sit down with 18 different staff members and different coaches evaluating and nitpicking his game, and just him being able to step away from all that and not have that part of it exhausting him as well. And going, yep, I need to focus on what I need to focus on. Usually your best coach can be yourself sometimes in these situations. So, yeah, I wonder if that had an impact as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. And the Leafs do have the most cooks in the kitchen of any team in the league. But one of the things you said there, forgetting your failures, I would expand that. And now he's taken on the mindset of forgetting his successes. So after the Kraken game, he had that amazing save in the third period, the cross crease one that, at that point, it's a 1-goal game. They need that save. And he was asked about it, and he basically said, I've forgotten about it. I'm thinking about the next save. He didn't even want to rehash his good play. And that's something that's never happened before with him. Like, usually he's been happy to go through the details of the game. Like, he's very amenable with us, the reporters post-game. Mm-hmm. But he's basically like, that was great, but I got to think about the next game. That was, and I'm sure someone has drilled that into him. But he's developed this new mantra of staying in the moment and always thinking about the next save. And time will tell if he can keep that up. I mean, sure. He's an emotional guy, and I think that's what a lot of people love about him, is he is kind of wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit. Like, even after last game, he said, "I didn't want it to go over to overtime." So 4 of his 5 previous losses went to overtime, and it's not all his fault, but they lost those games in overtime. So he said, I was feeling a little bit shaky about it going to overtime, and especially in a 0-0 game with both goalies got shutouts on the line. So you love that about him, but he is trying to change his mindset into not dwelling on what's happened in the past, good or bad.
So that's going to be it to me moving forward here is anybody can go to the gym for the first month when it's New Year's resolution time, but what gets you really in shape? Consistency, right? You have to stay mature with the diet. You have to stay mature with the timing of it. You got to try to keep improving on it. And that's going to be the thing for me now with Samsonov, is hearing from you say, hey, this guy was showing up early and putting the work in. He had a different approach. He's talking about his game differently. He's treating his past successes differently. He's trying to be more mature. Okay, that's good in a stint, right? That's a great thing to have. If you can continuously apply these things moving forward, I think that's how you actually enact change. That's how you'll really, truly inspire confidence in this fan base. Okay, so going back to the notebook, it said it's still a ways away from Woll getting a start with the Maple Leafs. Is your read that this is just an overly cautious situation? What do you make of the timeline here? You see a guy on the ice, it's hard not to wonder how far away he is from actually just being able to see a puck in a game.
Yeah. I don't think it's overly cautious. I think it's properly cautious because of the nature of the injury and the nature of the position. I think maybe some casual observers would be like, okay, he's got a high ankle sprain. Well, Timothy Liljegren had a high ankle sprain and he was back around now and he's playing every night. But goalies, I mean, you're a goalie. Like the way a goalie uses his ankle is a little bit different. And the time of the season, right? You don't want him to come back too early, re-injure his ankle, and then all of a sudden Samsonov and Jones is your tandem going into the playoffs. That, like, as great as the last 2 games have been for Samsonov, and as great as Jones was in a stretch, they still, believe Woll's the guy. So they're being, I think it's smart. And I think the fact that they're keeping their head above water, gathering points here has helped them buy some time. So basically, Woll has been back on the ice. He went on the trip with them, but it's all solo work with goalie coach Curtis Sanford. He hasn't even participated in a full Maple Leafs practice yet. The plan and the hope is that, and that will continue through this weekend. The plan and the hope is that after the bye week, after the All-Star break, Joseph Woll doesn't get to fly away to Cabo like some of the guys, right? He's going to stay in Toronto, continue his rehab, continue his work with Sanford, try to build that ankle up. And then the hope is that he can get into a full team practice when they return from the All-Star break, but they're not going to put him into game action right away, and they're going to see how that goes in practice for a while. So we're still weeks away.
Okay, yeah, because the original timeline, you're right. I was working off the Liljegren thing, and having the All-Star break. Yeah, I did kind of assume, all right, yeah, Islanders, February 5th, that's what you've got circled. And yeah, maybe we're going to wait a little while longer than that. Okay, but when he does return, and again, I know this should just be called the we're getting ahead of ourselves block with Luke Fox. I thought it was going to be Maple Leafs Notebook, but it's everything is just way getting ahead of ourselves. When he does return, they have the cap space, no problem, to carry 3 goaltenders. But do you think that they'll do that? Because there's a roster crunch implication, but then there is also a psychological implication and a playing time implication with all 3 of these guys.
Yeah, I think we got to reassess at that point.
Yeah.
What are there other injuries? What's their cap situation look like? Is there a trade by then? Like, we're talking weeks away.
Yeah, so that's
Woll's
the main
ready.
one is the trade quotient to me.
Yeah, so what's their cap picture look at that time? Yeah, but if there's no trade, if no injuries, they have the capability to carry 3. At this point, you wonder if Jones would clear waivers again.
I don't think so.
I think Samsonov would, despite his strong play, just because his cap hit is so high. Mm-hmm. And any team that would want him would probably be a contending team, and the contending teams are all pressed to the cap too. They can't just pick up $3.5 million in the snap of a finger and add it to their cap picture. Everyone's tight. So I would imagine he would clear, but do you want to do that to him again? So I think we just got to let it play out. They have the capability to carry 3 goalies for a while. A bunch of teams have already done it this season, so it's far from unprecedented. It's not ideal, though. Goalies don't really like being part of a 3-headed crease.
That's what I mean.
But let's let it play out a little bit and see what their cap picture looks at that time.
Fine, Luke.
Well, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do?
Okay, so I actually had this. Well, before the last night's Samsonov game, I was in the same thought process as you, where I was like, man, you kind of would have to just send Samsonov down, but then you really are hurting his Then he's going, man, what do I got to do, right? And so you're valuing Martin Jones more than you're valuing me. Then I also started to wonder if this move was allowed, because you said how the contender couldn't get Samsonov, but couldn't a team that has cap space grab him off of waivers? It's an expiring deal, and then offer him in a trade where you're saying, we'll take a ton of retention on this guy. You can get a goaltender that's a lottery ticket in your net, and we'll retain everything, but give us an actual piece. Like, is that even legal? Is that allowed?
Yeah, I mean, once you own the contract, sure.
Yeah, so I started to get really creative like that, going, I wonder if someone would have that foresight, if that could end up being a thing that happens, or why more teams, or if that's going to actually become something in the future when we see these types of deals waived. I think you would have to carry the 3 guys, but like you said, I don't love the idea of having all the dudes in the room, and the problem for me, and maybe this would just be another test of Samsonov's maturity and proving that he is somebody else, but I hate the idea of a guy who's struggled with confidence, who's trying to find himself, seeing the stall next to him, and it's the guy from the past. It's the looming threat of, if you have one bad start, this guy might be in the net and you might be back down in the AHL.
Yeah, but I'm kind of the mind that things are going to get uncomfortable. Things are going to get pressure packed. Like, you got to push through it. Like, the idea is to go multiple rounds. Yep. There's going to be uncomfortable moments. So if you can't handle the fact that there's pressure, there's always going to be pressure in the NHL. There's always someone that wants your job. Like, you have to push through that. And if you're not, then,
No, I get it.
You're not cut out for it.
Totally agree. Okay, so speaking of uncomfortable, Giordano sat again. Didn't get to face his former team, the Kraken, but that was fine. It was back-to-back. This one was a little different. And now we're going to head into Saturday night. I feel like Connor Timmins performed pretty well, and I don't think that there's a play justification to put Giordano back in the net. What are we looking at here with his playing time, his future with the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, it was one thing for him to sit consecutive back-to-backs because he just said, hey, he's the oldest guy in the league. That's a lot on consecutive nights. But last night was telling because you kind of assumed, okay, it's not a back-to-back. You've had a bunch of nights rest. Mm-hmm. He's going to go back in. And Keefe says, no, I'm going to stick with with Timmins. And Timmins even, showed some edge, but he also got fined for a pretty reckless play in that Kraken game.
Yeah, really dangerous
So
play.
I was a little surprised. Now you ask Keefe about it, and basically he says two things. He says, one, Gio's given us everything we got. He's leaving it all out there. And then he says, we want some more balance, some lefty-righty balance in our lineup. And Timmins is the only right shot they got. Brody's already playing his offside. He wanted to get Jake McCabe some time on his proper left side. So he throws Timmins in. And I think, that idea of having lefty-righty balance is really secondary to him seeing Gio hitting a bit of a wall. And he was overused last year. It affected his performance in the playoffs. I believe, and probably a lot of people would agree with me, that he wasn't at peak form by the time the playoffs rolled around. And I think we're starting to see it a little bit. Now, the tricky part is this is a proud guy, former Norris winner, arguably one of the most respected and beloved guys in that room. I mean, he's just a gem of a human being, and has had a fantastic story, fantastic career. And he's saying, oh, I have plenty of rest. I'm good. And he's saying it politely, but he said, remember, I had a whole month off to rest when I blocked a shot and broke my thumb. So in his mind, he's ready to go. He's a competitor. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So I would say Timmins is on a short leash, but he's the younger guy. Let's give him some run and see what happens. But it is something to keep an eye on to see how this plays out, because Gio wants back in.
Yeah. Okay. So when I've asked Mark Giordano's former teammates to tell me about him, one thing always comes back: loves to play.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Like, I don't think this is it's totally fine. I'll sit. he's pretty. Yeah. Him saying to you, I can play. I had rest. He wants to. That's about as ornery as I think that he'll be in terms of getting in the media and saying that he wants to get back in. But to me, it's not even so much the Connor Timmins part of it. It's this team. If there's one priority for them, still seemingly, anyways, from an outsider's perspective, it's adding depth on the blue line. And when you're just watching it go this way, if you can lose ice to Connor Timmins, well, that might all of a sudden put you as the team's seventh defenseman, regardless of what they think about Connor moving forward, right? Like his job is, to me, very, very, very much in peril. And I'm guessing that he's got to be thinking about that pretty heavily. And then if that does happen, what does that do to a room, considering that he is one of their leaders? He is one of their heart and soul guys. So, it's going to be curious what happens here. And it also is timed with the coach doing other hard-ass things, right? Benched his stars last night. He's taking Mark Giordano out of the lineup. He's bumping up Nick Robertson to get more minutes. He's calling guys out in the media. You're around the team every day. Are we making a bigger deal of all of this on the outside? Are you noticing a shift in Keefe's demeanor, approach? How are you seeing Sheldon Keefe now versus the Sheldon Keefe that we've been accustomed to?
Oh, there's a shift. It's like, how the Leafs couldn't win a board battle last night? I felt like if Sheldon Keefe was on the ice, he would be winning those board battles. Like he is grinding. He is grinding as any coach can. Honestly, this guy wants to win. I respect his work ethic. I don't always, when I think about him, I do question if he is the guy to push this team over the top. But I never question his work ethic or desire to win, or how much he obsesses over trying to find the right combinations and trying to get the most out of this team. And I think it's very significant, the fact that he benched that top power play unit. For one, they deserved it. Like that's an embarrassing play. A 2-on-0, shorthanded, that never happens. And why does it happen? It's because they stayed out too long, because they want to get the power play back on track, or they want to get their points or whatever. And then both the guys go off when the other team has possession and they're rushing the other way. Matthews and Marner go off. Nylander has a soft play to turn it over. And why do they do that? Because they're exhausted. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to stay out and take the whole 2 minutes when you're humming and you're generating chances, then it's like, oh my gosh, this power play is going to score. Like you just feel it in the building, but that's not what it felt like. Mm-mm. So they exhaust themselves, and they almost gave the game away were it not for Samsonov making that save, 2 saves. So I can't recall a time where he's done that, where he basically benched them for a while, sat them the whole next power play, then started the second unit on the power play after that, and then finally said, okay, I think I delivered my message. I'll throw those guys out there. And he basically said, we made a mistake. And those guys, to their credit, Matthews owned it after the game, said that can't happen. That's on us. Maher, changed his tune a little bit and said, we got to be better. We will be better. Like they owned it. So message sent. He didn't make a big deal about it post game. He kind of couched it in terms of, hey, those guys carry the mail for us. Matthews gets the game winner. It's behind us. It's been dealt with. What hasn't been dealt with, though, is the fact that the power play is in a really deep funk. Mm-hmm. They should have won that game on special teams. They got 5 power play chances to Winnipeg's 2. They had 4 in a row to start the game. Like, you got to put that game away. If supposedly that's your identity, is this dangerous power play team loaded with superstars, you got to put that game away before it even gets to that point. So the power play needs a shakeup, or they just need to wake up. But it's been dreadful for a couple of weeks now.
We used to say that the Leafs power play was their enforcer.
Yeah.
That feels foolish right now. Winnipeg is not just without Hellebuck last night. They're out without multiple players, but they're the 23rd ranked penalty kill in the NHL with Connor Hellebuck in net. And that's the performance that the Leafs put together with 4 straight power plays and playing a 6th of the game on the power play. So yeah, that was dreadful last night. And I think some of it is the way that they try to enter the zone, and that's based off of watching every game and also speaking with other people who know something about it. I thought that they changed their approach somewhat, which helped them as the game went on, which was just a little bit more north. But yeah, I think at this point it's pretty clear they're going to have to try some different personnel because, 1 for your last 20 it's not going to work when this is the way that you've built your hockey team around, the most expensive power play in the NHL. So I don't know. I think it's got to happen as soon as Saturday night, and these guys are at the All-Star game. It's in town, but that's got to be one of the main focuses of this group when they're moving forward here. Last one. So Robertson gets bumped up. You wrote about him again in your notebook. Sheldon Keefe called him Spark. He's the guy that he's glowing about right now all of a sudden, which is nice. And he played amazing last night. What happens again, though, when they've got to make some of these roster decisions and Bertuzzi comes back and he can actually play in a hockey game? Because I think Robertson, it's very, very clear that he's going to stay in there on Saturday night. But how much does he stay in there moving forward?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and it's one I don't have a definitive answer to right now. But I think my suspicion is you just keep Bertuzzi at home, brand new baby. Go ahead. Just we won without you. Robertson's flying right now. I wonder if they just leave the roster untouched for Saturday night. You can't take Robertson out. He just played his most ice time in his whole career. Mm-hmm. The only guy who had more shots, only Leaf who had more shots than him last night was John Tavares, who had 7 and just still extends his career-long point drought. The guy just can't put the puck in the net. But Robertson was buzzing. He was very noticeable, gets pumped up the lineup, which was a really smart move by Keefe to notice that he had legs. He was one of the few guys that was engaged in the game. To actually promote him mid-game, I thought was a smart call on Keefe's behalf. But you also have to, for the culture of your team, you can't scratch a guy when he's going, right? It sends the wrong message. You have to, it has to be merit-based. You have to reward his strong performance. The trouble always with Robertson is, do you take Bobby McMahon out? You can't put Robertson down on the 4th line. He's not a 4th liner. So you're right. When Bertuzzi comes back up, the top 6 gets complicated. But he's going now. He's going more than Nyes is going. I would keep him in. And if it means giving Nyes a breath, giving Holmberg a breath, someone, I think you do it. I don't think internal competition is a bad thing.
I think it's a great thing.
If it gives guys a slap in the face, it wakes them up and say, hey, maybe my lineup spot isn't secure because this guy's hungrier than me all of a sudden, then so be it. But you got to keep rolling with him. He's been one of the things I would say about Robertson, and so he's been through this before where he's been healthy scratched and stuff. He's taken it in a much more mature way this season. I've been really impressed by his demeanor because I talk to him regularly because he's one of the best talkers in the room, one of the most honest guys in the room. And the way he's approached being out of the lineup has been incredibly mature. Like, I thought he would be a little bit more ticked when Holmberg all of a sudden took his spot, considering how many goals he's producing in how little ice time he's gotten, Robertson. So good on the kid. And it's really nice to see because it's been a struggle for him when you consider his injury history. So it's nice to see him getting some respect from the coach because he could not get in Keefe's good books for the longest time.
Yeah, totally agree. And, maybe if there's a theme to all the guys that had successes last night, which is few and far between, but it was Sheldon Keefe, Nick Robertson, it was Ilya Samsonov, and then I think to a lesser extent Timmins. It's, hey, these are the guys that were sort of playing free. They were just letting it hang out, and all of them seemingly a little bit of a step maturity-wise, at least on the ice last night. So we'll see if it continues. But yeah, these are, especially the two guys, Robertson and Samsonov. It's a lot of people are rooting for them, and so I hope that it stays consistent. And God knows the team absolutely needs it. Luke, thanks for the time as always, buddy. Lots of great stuff today.
Okay, thanks for having me, JD. Have a good one.
You too.